So we're going to jump back into the testimony of Rodric Williams to the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry, and he outlines his roles at the Post Office over the past 12-year period and his involvement in the compensation for sub-postmasters and the appeals against their historic convictions. If you do have a couple of quid spare to support our work, then please see the links to Patreon and locals.com in our description and profile. Thanks for your support. Let's jump into the inquiry.
Can I start with your background, please? You joined the Post Office in August 2012, is that right?
Yes, it's late August.
And you remain an employee of the Post Office?
Yes.
And specifically, you are the head of legal in the Post Office's remediation unit?
I'm a head of legal in the remediation unit, yes.
Oh, there's more.
So more than one head of legal. So in the 12 years that he's been at the Post Office, he's risen up from lawyer to head of legal. So reasonable career path.
More than one head of legal, okay.
Yes.
How many heads of legal are there in the remediation unit?
At the moment, I think there may be another 2, possibly 3. I'm not sure, I'm sorry.
Okay, so you're one of the heads of legal within the remediation unit, is that right?
Correct.
And I think you've held that role in the remediation unit since August 2020.
Yes.
The Post Office's website suggests that the remediation unit has 3 main functions: compensation and redress for sub-postmasters, administering matters related to the appeals of historic criminal convictions, and the provision of full assistance to this inquiry. Is that a fair summary of what it does?
I had thought the inquiry was separate, but it seems correct, yes.
So that's quite an important role to have, even in 2020, after the prosecutions have started being responsible for the compensation. That's still not been paid to sub-postmasters, being responsible for cooperation with the inquiry, which we know there's been problems surrounding disclosure of documents in time and responsibility for the appeals of convictions. We know the vast majority of those, up until recently, we were only up to 70 odd that have been overturned. That got up to 92 in the government's proposed legislation to exonerate the rest of the sub-postmasters that have been wrongly accused, but that's in progress still.
If you felt that it was separate, I mean, you work in it, is it separate or not?
I don't deal with the inquiry team, so I thought it was separate.
Right. So do you deal with compensation and redress?
I have done previously, yes.
And do you deal with matters relating to the appeals of historic convictions?
I have assisted the company with that, yes.
I'm sorry, I missed you there.
I'm sorry, I have assisted the company with that, yes.
Does it follow that, notwithstanding your personal role in the events which have happened since August 2012, you hold a senior position in the unit concerned with the provision of redress to sub-postmasters?
Yes.
And with the administration of issues relating to the appeals against their convictions?
Yes.
In terms of your qualifications, I think you were admitted as a solicitor and a barrister in New Zealand in 1995.
Correct.
And you worked in that country on civil matters until 1998.
Yes.
From 1999, you worked in civil litigation practice in the United Kingdom, and you were then admitted as a solicitor of England and Wales in 2002, is that right?
Yes.
You worked in New York between 2003 and 6, when you then returned to the UK again to work in civil litigation matters.
Yes, I came back from New York at the end of 2005.
So he's well travelled and well experienced as a lawyer, certainly, to be holding such a role. So you'd think that experience will certainly help him in his job.
Overall, do you accept, therefore, that you had considerable and wide-ranging experience as a civil litigator in private practice prior to joining the Post Office?
Yes.
Do you accept that since joining the Post Office you remained bound at all times by the SRA's Code of Conduct?
I do.
If we turn up, please, on the screen, page 11 of your witness statement and paragraph 22, page 11, paragraph 22, you say in the first sentence you'd often been asked to distill or synthesise information provided from various parts of the business for other audiences within the business, particularly if the information concerns legal issues with which I have some familiarity. And then at the end of the paragraph, you say, I generally rely on others for the accuracy of the content, especially if it concerns areas outside my expertise, with my role being to, quote, sense check it. Yes?
Yes.
That might be interpreted as meaning that your role was limited to one of gathering pieces of paper written by other people together, like a cataloguer of information. Is that what you were trying to say?
Yes.
Possibly then we're kind of referring to predominantly areas, I'm guessing, outside of his legal expertise, but there seems to be a lot of posting of documents from one area of the post office to other areas to comment on. I mean, presumably it would just be easier if they just came from the source of the people with those expertise and he dealt with legal issues, but I guess it depends on how much they are involved in the day-to-day administration of compensation and appeals and whether that goes beyond the bounds of just the legal aspects of it.
It might be interpreted as meaning that your role was limited to summarising the legal advice of others. Is that what you were trying to say?
No, not necessarily. It would depend on the task at hand.
And so over the decade period that we're talking about, sometimes you provided legal advice of your own?
Yeah, I would think that was right, yes.
You didn't simply distill or synthesise the legal advice of others?
Not exclusively, but I would have said predominantly with the matters we're concerned with here.
So the post office is employing lawyers who predominantly just distill and synthesise the work of others rather than offer their own legal advice. That's a curious requirement for lawyers, I guess. Sounds more administrative.
You mainly summarise other people's legal advice in that 10-year period, is that right?
No, I think that's an oversimplification.
You tell us then.
I'm sorry, what would you...
Yes,
I'm struggling to understand, I'm sorry.
Yes, it's entirely my fault. What was your role, looking at it as a whole, in the provision of legal advice to the post office concerning the Horizon system and matters that concerned it? Did you mainly summarise other people's legal advice and sense check it?
No,
or did you provide legal advice of your own?
It would literally depend. It's a very broad subject over a long period of time. My primary role was to ensure that the company was receiving the advice it needed. That might have come from a variety of sources. It may have been something I could contribute to. But the concern was the delivery to post office so that it could act as it saw fit or as it saw it needed to.
So it's neither one thing nor the other, it's both, depending on the context?
Quite possibly, and possibly at the same time. It may be that I could contribute in addition to formal advice received, but...
In terms of the period before you moved to the remediation unit, so from the time when you joined the post office in August 2012 until I think August 2020, that 10-year period, what was your job title?
I think it changed halfway through. I was hired as, quote, litigation lawyer, I think was the title. And then I became head of legal, brackets, dispute resolution and brand.
And when was that, please?
I think that was in 2017. It's in my statement.
So, sorry, that can come down the statement that's on the screen, thank you. Before you became head of legal in 2017, to whom did you report?
I reported initially, before I became head of legal, yes, I reported to a head of legal.
And who was that?
For a period, I'm sorry, I can't remember the dates. It was to Hugh Flemington for a period, and then a colleague called Jessica Madron.
And after you became head of legal, to whom did you report?
I reported to the legal director, who was Ben Fote.
And was that, and has that been for the entirety of the period from 17 until today?
No, not until today, no. It was until I moved to the remediation unit.
Okay.